the highest grossing law firms in the world is set to take over the prosecution of a Minnesota state trooper as Hennepin County's top attorney scrambles to put together a case against another member of Minnesota law enforcement. Imran Ali, who serves as general counsel for Minnesota's Police and Peace Officers Association, joins me. Imran, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Liz, for having me.
I feel like you might be suffering from a bit of whiplash to recap all that's happened in the last few days in the prosecution of Minnesota State Trooper Ryan Londregan. It seems there's almost desperation at this point to charge this state trooper by Moriarty. Just my opinion here, but what's going on from your perspective?
Yeah, from my perspective, I've never seen anything like it. This was a case that was almost a year today, and we had the charges. We weren't expecting those charges to be issued after reviewing the body-worn camera, and to see those charges being issued in January is one thing, but to see what we've witnessed in the last 3 months is something that I've never seen in my entire career.
And just to bring people up to speed, there are now 4 sworn declarations, including the latest, which was a major in the state patrol who wrote the policy that also says Londregan was following training when Ricky Cobb refused commands and started dragging the troopers into traffic when Londregan fired. And then in addition, a use of force expert for the prosecution who said he committed no crime. The lead prosecutor, Josh Larson, asks off the case. Other Hennepin County attorneys also clearly don't believe in the merits of this case. Can you even say at this point, with this new law firm stepping in, what your predictions are that will happen here? And now there are questions if this team is even on board, as they seem to have removed things from their actual website announcing their involvement.
Sure, a lot of things to unpack there. I mean, I think this is a case, if you review the criminal complaint, and in my career, and over the last 20 years, I've probably drafted, thousands and thousands of complaints. I've reviewed even more than that. This is one of those complaints that I've seen that is so thin on probable cause, which again is the lowest standard. It's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a lower standard, but I've never seen anything like it. And so the only thing that's really holding this probable cause together is the assertion that there was a violation of training and policies based on what appears to be an interview that was conducted with the grand jury or outside of the grand jury with law enforcement. And now with those declarations coming forward, including one of those very same people that was interviewed, that was kind of that slim little piece of probable cause you have. And now for that declaration to come forward under oath with the advice of their attorney, this is the witness's attorney, now you have that one slim piece of probable cause being eviscerated. So that's really concerning, I think, to us, is the fact that we're going forward on a case that is of high profile and of high magnitude as this case, with such slim probable cause that even your own witness that's quoted in the criminal complaint has now said, hey, not so fast. That's not what I said. And then to complicate it even more, I can't think of another use of force case, which this would be, where there's no expert witness. And in this case, what we've seen, at least after the charging decision, is that there was an expert. The expert, as the Hennepin County attorney says, was critical in this analysis. That expert is known all over the country, known to Minnesota, actually has testified for prosecution before in Minnesota. And so when that expert comes back and says that if the trooper in this case was trying to prevent death or great bodily harm from his partner who was in the vehicle, then he would be reasonable in doing so. And once that conclusion, and even though it wasn't in writing, but once that conclusion occurred, then we saw a pivot from the county attorney who now says, you know what, now we don't need an expert. Again, something I've never seen before. So we have this criminal complaint now that has, on one hand, it started out with no slim probable cause. Now you have witnesses that are saying that this isn't true. And now you have this stuff we're learning about the expert that concluded, again, that force was reasonable in this case. So there's a lot of problems going on.
And then these Hennepin County commissioners go ahead and give Moriarty the green light to hire 4 former federal prosecutors. But what kind of message overall, Imran, does this send to any working cop in Hennepin County at this point?
I think I said it 3 years ago, but I don't think an officer can get a fair trial. You cannot tip the scales of justice regardless of what happens, regardless of what you think, regardless of what your ideology is, regardless of your background. Being a prosecutor is a tremendous role. And as a minister of justice, sometimes you have to make those difficult decisions. And in this particular case, to bring in 4 outsiders from DC, it says 2 things. Number one, it says to all of her experienced prosecutors that are left in the office, you're not experienced enough, according to her. And then on the other hand, it sends law enforcement that this is a county attorney that ran on a platform of police accountability and to go after police and has a long history of anti-police comments, and now fulfilling those campaign promises. And so the prosecution of the trooper in this case is a prosecution at all costs. And I think we're seeing it play out not only inside the courtroom, but outside the courtroom.
Hundreds of people showed up to support Trooper Londregan at the Hennepin County Courthouse last Monday morning. We saw you were there with him. What was that like for you to see for yourself?
Well, being in this for over 2 decades, I've never seen anything like it before. I was not only in the courtroom, but I was also outside there as well, observing different conversations that would be had. And, everybody has a right to assemble and, to voice their position. That's what makes our country a great country it is. And what I saw was there was a good group of law enforcement that was there that, again, is supporting this issue in court. That's why they're there. They're supporting this position that the trooper did nothing wrong under the law. To see that there, I think, was a good message, and it resonated, at least definitely with me. And I know countless other people that I've talked to on a variety of different spectrums. But, one of the things that really wasn't reported too much that I saw a lot of on the other side is one thing to support. It's another thing to agitate. It's another thing to intimidate. It's another thing to use fear in that process. And what I observed, whether people knocking into other people's shoulders, whether people trying to create confrontations with, getting in other people's personal space. I was with a lady and I just happened to record just myself a video, a kind of a panoramic of what was going on. And the night I listened to it and I heard her, I didn't hear it at the time, but as I'm watching this video, I hear her and she's calling all of the people in the maroon shirts white supremacists.
It's been all white supremacists that hit our people.
And again, I've been called that before, and I certainly am not white and not a white supremacist. And so it just kind of shows you really where we've gotten now, these ridiculous conclusions that are being made, and also this use of fear and intimidation. Again, no place in our justice system. It's one thing for your voice to be heard, and they have every right to do so. They want justice for Ricky Cobb II, and they have every right to ask for justice and assemble in that way to do so. But to use fear and intimidation, simply there's no place for that.
And you have a unique perspective in all of this. Former Washington County prosecutor yourself, who charged former Brooklyn Center police officer Kim Potter back in 2021 with second-degree manslaughter, and then it's Attorney General Keith Ellison who takes over the case. She's then charged with first-degree manslaughter. You ultimately resign your position over all of this, and you kind of alluded to this. It almost seems in a way you saw the writing on the wall with what our justice system seems to be turning into, and you saw for yourself the outside pressure back then with Kim's case, the protest at people's homes, the threats against you. And we're seeing that again play out years later.
I'd like to say I was clairvoyant in that, but what really occurred to me, and I really haven't talked about this much, but when I knew I kind of had to walk away was when I was watching the trial of Derek Chauvin. And during that jury selection process, there was some breaking news that was released, and that was when the Minneapolis City Council announced the decision for the civil settlement. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a trial of our generation, maybe of our lifetime. It's certainly different than O.J. Simpson with the emergence of social media. We had over 3,000 media that was from all over the country that was here. And at that very time, in that moment, the city council believed that was the right time to issue that. As a lawyer and somebody who's been involved and has litigated civilly, I can tell you that the timeline of these types of cases sometimes takes 3, 4, 5 years. And to see that announcement come at that time, to me, it just shook me to the core, because I was witnessing, in my estimation, that there was a city council. Now we had elected individuals that were trying to tamper or interfere with the jury. And I didn't know a few weeks later I'd have a front row seat, and that's exactly what I saw. I saw the governor making comments. I saw the mayor of Brooklyn Center making comments. And again, these are comments that are should never be made, especially in a case when there's an active investigation by people that have that significant power. Once I started seeing that continue to happen and go unchecked, and then we had all of the intimidation, whether it's the death threats that we received, whether it's the protests at our homes, and we continue to see that escalate. I wanted nothing to do with it because those were going unchecked as well. And again, if you don't uncheck, if there's no consequence for someone's action, there's going to continue to amplify that. And I think if we look from 2016 until 2020, we have these cases where there was a lot of, no accountability through the process, whether it's Jamar Clark, whether it's the Justine Damon case, whether it's Philando Castile. We saw this increase and of this sort of fear and intimidation, and to see that go unchecked, I had to walk away. And just to see this happen right now is so disheartening, Liz, because my intention wasn't to create, I would say, a Jerry Maguire moment where I would have all these people saying, I quit too. I understand that what I did was extremely unique, walking away from a profession I love, walking away from my pension. But what I expected to see after that is a reaction from not only our elected leaders, but our other prosecutors to say enough is enough. And instead, what's happened? Silence. And that silence continues to happen when we have somebody criminally accused for something he never should have been charged with in the first place.
The next hearing for Londregan is scheduled for May 15th. His attorney, Chris Maddle, wants a probable cause hearing. The judge has yet to decide if that will happen. All the while, I know the MPPOA has now twice called on Governor Walz to step in. Is there even a chance that that will happen at this point?
I sure hope so. On one hand, I just commented about, the governor not involving himself because that's what happened. But there's now been a track record of involvement. And so then I look back and say, all right, well, now we're asking on the other side for some sort of intervention. And we've asked multiple times and we still haven't gotten an answer. But here's what I'll say, Liz, is that if the governor, and I believe him to be, to be true with the statement, that he's concerned about what's happening. If you're concerned about a prosecution that's occurring, all right, concerned is a strong word. If you're concerned about a prosecution, in our justice system, the accused always has an advantage. And that's the way it should be, right? That's why our country, again, is the best, is that there has to be proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you have the governor saying, I'm concerned about a prosecution, what's the litmus test now to take that away? Because if we have a criminal defendant, we have a trooper now that has been charged, and we have multiple people saying that they're concerned and this case shouldn't have been, this case needs to be assigned immediately. And if Governor Walz is listening, or if this gets out, in some way, I would tell the governor, 2 weeks ago would have been better, but we need action today. I mean, today, if that action comes in, we need the governor to intervene. We need to ensure that justice indeed happens for both sides. I think we need an intervention, and we can't get that. We can't get a fair process with this county attorney. I think we know that.
And finally, at this point, what can people do?
I think continue to put pressure in a respectful way to the governor and ask the governor to, move. Ultimately, as cliched as it is, elections do have consequences. And, this county attorney ran on a platform, and there are certain people that said, that's not going to happen. And we're seeing it play out before our very eyes. And so be mindful, regardless of party affiliation, of who you're voting for. Understand what their we have an important election coming up in a few months. Understand who these people are, understand their background, talk to people. Your vote is really important. I would go one step further. I think that the messaging needs to be to the governor, and I definitely would be the one leading in this, is that this is one case, Liz. It's one case. Today, tomorrow, this weekend, next week, there could be another case. And what we have seen with this county attorney is that she has a bias towards policing. And so what I would ask, the people, your viewers, as well as the governor in this case, is not only this case, I would ask that all Hennepin County, past, present, and future officer-involved shooting cases or use of force cases out of Hennepin County be removed from that office, period. I think her record in this case and also her past statements have created this bias that she has towards law enforcement. And when you have the power of a prosecutor, you have a very, very big sword. And to see that being unleashed in this sort of way against this specific group, it should never be done, and should make everyone pretty scared about what's occurring.
Imran Ali, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Liz. Appreciate it.
That'll do it for this episode of Liz Collin Reports. We'll see you next time.